Alright, so I'm gonna be making kind of like a informative video explaining full screen optimizations because I feel like people never really understood what it is and what it does. And I still see people on YouTube recommending to disable them on like the game launcher, or not the game launcher, but like the XE. So like here, like when you go to the game XE and you go to compatibility and you disable full screen optimizations, like I still see people doing that, and I'm going to be explaining like what it does and why you shouldn't do it. And then also I'm going to explain more into uh, present models for games and stuff like that, and how you can check to make sure you're using the right one with a little program. So I guess I'll just start with full screen optimizations, like what it actually does. So disabling full screen optimizations, all it does really is it allows DirectX 11 games to be displayed in exclusive full screen. So exclusive full screen basically means that the game is displayed in front of DWM, which DWM is Desktop Window Manager, which if you take a look under details, it's somewhere in here. Yeah, here it is, Desktop Window Manager. It's just oh, I closed it, but yeah, DWM. Exclusive full screen allows only DirectX 11 games. Keep that in mind. Um, to be displayed in front of DWM, which in turn uh, will lower like latency because the frames aren't having to be shown through DWM. Think of it as like another filter, so the game would be like the most front thing on your monitor. It's kind of weird to explain, but hopefully that makes sense. Like it was the most forward thing in the foreground. So like for example, like this window is on top of File Explorer. File Explorer is on top of Google. So like for example, the game would be this window. But anyways, disabling full screen optimizations no longer is necessary for a couple reasons. One, because most games nowadays are DirectX 12. You cannot go exclusive full screen in DirectX 12. They removed it, and I'll explain why. And two, there is a either like on par with the same like performance and latency of exclusive full screen, or even better present model. So I'll get into that now. So basically, there is a flip model called DXGI Flip. This is the new frame presenting model. It's not really new, but a lot of developers didn't add it to DirectX 11 games, and instead just saved it for like newer DirectX 12 games. So I'm gonna have like some links if you want to read more about it. Like here's a Microsoft documentation on DXGI Flip and kind of how the flip chain works, and all of that. And then here's another DirectX developer blog about it, and you can see here. I think it's, yeah. So he says right here, effectively equivalent or better when compared to the classic full screen exclusive. Um, and so one thing, if you ever played a game in full screen exclusive, alt tabbing took forever because the game had to like take itself out of exclusive full screen, which took a couple of seconds, so your monitor would like flash black a couple times. And so yeah, you can read this. The previous present model was BLT, um, and it's much slower than DXGI flip. And so um, I guess I'll go ahead and talk about how to make sure your game is using DXGI flip. So the easiest way is to use this program called PresentMon. Um, it gives a lot more information than what we really care about, but it does tell you what flip model you're using. So if we come down here on the GitHub, there's a lot of information it tells you, but we get present mode information. The one you want your game to be in is hardware independent flip, this one. Um, I believe any of these hardware ones will actually be the newer flip model, and any composed ones are the old ones. But what you really want is hardware independent flip. You wanted to say this one. So how to use this? Basically, you come into, you download the zip here, and then so yeah, once you download that zip, you can download this exe, and then I'll show you what that looks like. So you'll have like the zip, just extract it wherever, and then you'll have the exe. Put the exe in this folder here, the presentmon folder, and when you run this, it should come up like this, and it will give you information on processes that are running right now. So if we look here, sometimes you have to rearrange this window. So if we look at OBS, we have like frame times, and then we have this composed copy with GPU. Obviously it's not a game, but this would be like where you'd see hardware independent flip for the game that you have open. So I think actually now I'll open like Modern Warfare and show what it looks like on here. Okay, so now you should be able to see my second monitor. I have Modern Warfare full screened, and you see it says hardware independent flip at the very end. This is good. That means it's using the new DXGI flip model. With DirectX 12, it doesn't matter if you go full screen or full screen borderless. It'll both use hardware independent flip, the new DirectX or DXGI model, and also disabling full screen optimizations doesn't do anything. It will still be hardware independent flip. So if you're playing a DirectX 12 game, it really doesn't matter. Like as long as you're playing either full screen or full screen borderless, it will be the new flip model. That also means that there's literally no performance difference between full screen or full screen borderless. Like I'll show proof of that in a second, but it does not matter. So if you want like faster alt tabs, you can use full screen borderless on DirectX 12. The other thing to look at is just to the left of what present model you're using. It has latency, and I think there's a small calculation for that, but that's like theoretical latency. But that's like a combination of how long it takes to go through the swap chain, which is what DXGI flip does faster, and then also I think that's like a frame time calculation in there. But yeah, so that latency, don't don't think of it as super important, but it is pretty important because that's how fast the frames are being displayed, how fast they're going through the buffer and everything. So I'll show something with that later on with an older game, and why like max FPS, like as much as FPS you can get, doesn't always mean lower latency. because of the game engine. Um, so I'll show that in a second. But yeah, that's DirectX 12. You're going to be using the new flip model anyway, so don't really worry about that too much. But DirectX 11, on the other hand, um, I'll show it does matter what you do to use the new flip model. Okay, so here we have just quick proof. Full screen and borderless have zero performance impact. You can see the numbers are almost identical. This was recorded on Shoot House, and I just ran in the same path every single time. These are also like 2 runs that have been averaged together. So yeah, you can see there's literally zero performance impact. Any FPS within here is like margin of error, like 1 FPS difference, which is there's no difference. So yeah, that was just a little proof of that. So now I have IronSight open, which you can see it's actually DirectX 9. If you look under the X, it says D3, D9, which is DirectX 9. DXGI will be DirectX 11 and 12. It won't say like D3, D11, D3, D12. It'll just say DXGI. But anyways, if you look, so I have it full screened right now. You can see hardware independent flip. I don't think I couldn't get IronSight to go exclusive full screen, but if you were to use a game that can go exclusive full screen, that is DirectX 9 or 11, it would say composed with like GPU or something like that. So like full screen optimizations, like on without checking it, without disabling it, that is what puts it into DXGI flip, which is what you want. So that's why it's just like it's so stupid to disable full screen optimizations, because it's what puts you in the faster present model. And I just don't understand why people disable it. It literally puts you in a faster model. So the other thing so this is DirectX 9, it's an older game. If you look where the latency is showing, you can see it's showing like 7, 6, and you can see my FPS there, a couple over. It's like 470 in game without like recording my other monitor and stuff. I get like 5 to 600, like I get a lot of FPS. And in this game, it's actually worse to have this much FPS. So I'll show that now. On my screen, I'm just going to go into video options, and the max FPS that this allows is 300. So you can see now it's showing 300 FPS. And now look at my latency. It's like 2, goes to 1 sometimes, because this engine cannot handle over 300, and that's why inside the game it only lets you go to 300. I've uncapped it with the config just to show like some engines cannot handle more than a certain amount of FPS. So that's something that you can use this program to look at to see, like, is getting more FPS actually doing it like something good. And so you can see in this game, obviously more FPS is not better. It's faster just to have it at 300 because the frame times are much lower, much more consistent. The other thing is, I'll just go ahead and show, so this is equivalent to DirectX 11. So in the game, I'm going to set it to borderless, and you'll see the present model change. So I'll set that now. Now it's in borderless. You can see it says composed copy of GPU. That means it's using the old like present model, the slower one. And so you can see the FPS did dip a little bit. The FPS displayed dropped a little bit. but mainly what we're looking at is the latency. You see, it went all the way up to 10. Um, so that's why you really don't want to use this old uh, display model. Now, if this was exclusive full screen, I think it might be a little bit closer, but it's still using the older, slower display model. So it doesn't matter what game. Disabling full screen optimizations is useless, and in some cases it can be bad. Um, so yeah, hopefully you found this video helpful. Um, yeah.